Hello, this is Smithy's PEP Guide Part 2. In this section we'll be looking at the introduction. This part of the PEP is basically outlining what you're going to look at, why you're looking at it, and how you're going to evaluate it in the main body. The introduction outlines the areas that your PEP are going to work on and what you will be looking at after your PEP in your evaluation. So, sections. Section 1 is the aims and objectives of the PEP. Outline a performance target, referencing data, outline a fitness target, referencing data. Section 2 is goal setting, so use of SMART targets. Outline a specific performance and fitness target, outlining end goals. Methods training, outline the method of training you're using to improve your component fitness. And section 4 is a principles training, outlining how you're using each of the principles training in your program. The 4 sections I've outlined there you must include in your introduction, otherwise you won't be able to fulfill the marking requirements. So section 1, aims and objectives of the PEP. This section is where you explain your performance development objective and the component fitness that you're going to develop. There's 2 examples here. One is for a 400 meter sprinter. So I'll go through that one first. In this example, the candidate is a 400 sprinter, so they've used the competition's times as their performance data. They've identified that their speed and power are the areas that they want to develop, as speed is a component of power, is sensible work on both. So they've written, before beginning my PEP, I compiled a selection of times from my 5 most recent races, and they've referenced Appendix 6, so that's where their performance data is housed. The average time of those events was 54.47, which I believe would be easily improved using a well-designed training program. To support this data and the development of component fitness which required improvement, I complete a range of fitness tests. Again, they've referenced that, so the examiner can go and look at the fitness tests they've done, which would be rated against national data. These results show that I have a good level against normative data for the 30 metre sprint with a time of 4.20 above average. However, my power was lacking with a sergeant jump score of 42 centimetres below average. So they've compared their results to national data again, which is really important. Due to the massive importance of these 2 components of fitness to a sprinter, I decided that my program would be focused mostly on speed and power in order to maximise my potential in the 400 metre. Now, there's no requirement to do 2 components of fitness. The candidate has chosen this occasion to do that because power is comprised of speed and muscular strength. So actually speed and power go hand in hand. If you were doing cardiovascular fitness, for example, you wouldn't then do muscular strength with it because that wouldn't be appropriate to develop. So in this case, with power, you would be just as legitimate developing speed and muscular strength to develop power. Basically, they go hand in hand because you have to have both of them to get to where you're going. The next example is from a football defender. In this example, again, they've done their prior to the PEP fitness tests. So prior to my PEP, I carried out an assessment of skills involved in my football. So this time, instead of times, they've assessed their skills. They've referenced Appendix 7 where this data can be found. And they've identified that they're going to look at how long they can last in a game. So they've identified these results showing performance dropped as I fatigued after 58 minutes. Again, they've referenced that they've done fitness tests to back it up. So they've said see Appendix 2. This time they've identified that the 12-minute Cooper run is the area they want to work on. So their cardiovascular fitness, as their Cooper run came out as average against national data. So the 2 sets of data show me that I need to develop my cardiovascular fitness to allow me to play longer during a football match. So they've identified they're not lasting too long in the match. So they're going to target cardiovascular fitness to allow them to play at a higher level for longer in the game. So next section is goal setting, SMART targets. So basically it's setting yourself clear targets and how you're going to achieve them. So we'll go section by section on this one. So specific, in this section the targets for the PEP are outlined. This take the form of performance target and a component of fitness target. So what the candidate's done is they've given themselves an overall target for their sport. So in this example again, 30 metre sprint time to at least 4 seconds. And they've put improve my power, increasing my sergeant jump score to 50 centimetres. Okay, so they've basically given themselves a performance target. So another example could be my 400 metre time is currently 56 seconds. I want to get it down to 52 seconds. That would be a clear performance target. Or it could be, for the football defender example, I currently run for 58 minutes. I want to be able to run for 80 minutes without fatiguing. So you're given a clear start point and a clear finish point that you want to achieve by the end of your PEP. The fitness test target, so in this case, the improve my power, the sergeant jump, so they've given a clear starting point of 50 centimetres by the end of the PEP, 1.3 centimetres a week. So they're saying they want to improve by that much each week. Better still would be if they'd given an actual number. So for example, sergeant jump score 50 centimetres to start with. By the end of the PEP, I want to be able to jump 60 centimetres, which would be an above average score. So that would be even better because they're given a clear starting point and then a clear end number as well. Okay. So next one. By stating that there will be fitness testing each week, the candidate is showing that they are monitoring their progress. So measurable means that you're able to monitor the progress of your PEP. If you do the fitness test each week, you're going to clearly see any progress or lack of progress that's being made. If there's a lack of progress, the candidate may choose to adapt their PEPs, make it slightly harder so that they can see progress, and this will be reflected in their training logs. That would actually be really good practice if they've identified that there's an issue, because then they've adapted it, seen an improvement, and that gives you good stuff to evaluate. The achievable section's quite generic in what you're going to say. It's achievable, realistic, and time bound are outlined with explanation. So achievable means that it's a target that's not too difficult but equally not too easy. It's something you could achieve over the course of the PEP, the 6 weeks or 8 weeks. In addition, this candidate's talked about small increments. So if you give yourself a small weekly target to build up to your overall target, that's going to increase your motivation even more. So little short-term goals each week, which would be even higher grades if you're outlining short-term goals as well as your long-term. Realistic means basically that you've got the time, facilities, equipment, money to do your program. A good example of this would be if you work full-time, have a family, have you got time to train for a marathon? Younger candidates, obviously, which would be in this case, they probably have got the time and they have got the facilities to use at school, or they're at their local boxing club or athletics club. These things all mean that their targets are realistic. Time bound is basically giving a clear deadline for your work. So it's either going to be 6 or 8 weeks for your PEP. You've got that amount of time to make the improvements you've identified in your specific section. You're going to know if you've achieved them or not, because obviously your targets are measurable. For this section, you need to make sure you cover each part of SMART, because obviously in the evaluation, you're then going to talk about what your findings were regarding to your targets. You don't refer to anything in your evaluation that you haven't outlined in your introduction, so you need to make sure it's really detailed. So, methods of training, section 3. In this section, you're going to outline a method of training you're going to use to develop your component of fitness you've identified. So, the method of training in this one is weight training. Basically, the method of training I've chosen is to use is weight training, so see Appendix 4, as I outlined in the first video. This involves working against resistance, and in my case, the use of weight training. So it's a little definition of what it entails. One of the major benefits of mesh training is that it will stimulate muscle growth, hypertrophy, which means growth in muscle, increasing muscular strength. Muscular strength is vital along with speed of movement in developing power for sprinting. So with muscular strength and faster speed of movement, you're going to be more powerful. With this method of training, you need to be careful to allow recovery between training sessions to allow for adaptation of the muscle and avoid injury due to overtraining. This could lead to training losses, reversibility. This is why I've designed my program. Again, reference see Appendix 5. So this is the training schedule that shows your rest periods, and in addition that they're working different muscle groups on different days with their weight training to allow even more recovery. It's really important that happens, because what it's saying here is, although this method of training can develop muscle, you need to be careful how you use it, because weight training could lead to overtraining or injury quite easily. So you must build in the recovery sessions. So candidate has outlined the method of training they were using. They've given a definition what is outlined. The component fitness is targets, also reference where their training program can be found. In this section, they outline about the training schedule, referencing where the training timetable can be found and how they will avoid overtraining with the use of weight training. Again, you must reference where everything is found in the appendix. If you don't reference it, it is worthless and the examiner won't go hunting for it. Okay, section 4, principles of training. In this section, you outline how you're using the principle training within your program. So, pretty straightforward. You do a grid On the left hand side of this example, the candidate has put what each part of the methods of training actually means. So individual needs, matching training to the needs of individual; specificity, matching training to the needs of the sport; progressive overload / fit, gradually increasing the difficulty of training by changing frequency, intensity, time or type; overtraining, reversibility, training too much, not allowing recovery of the muscles, can result in injury. On the other side, they've said how they've used it in the PEP. So individual needs, the candidates said assessment of performance in varying areas was carried out, see appendix again, along with a range of fitness tests, see appendix. So basically, by carrying out the pre-performance data and their fitness tests, they've identified what area in their sport they need to work on for themselves, and then also identified what their fitness levels are and what their base fitness levels are. What that means is they're able to tailor their program for their own personal fitness goals, not other people around them. Okay, so specificity, what this is saying is basically you're tailoring the needs of your training to your sport. So in this circumstance, because you did the pre-performance data of looking at different positions and what you need to work on, your targets are directly working towards developing the performance of that. So assessment performance in my central defender position, where I identified areas of strength and weakness, this allowed me specifically target area of performance that I needed to work on. So with this candidate, he was working on his cardiovascular fitness. That could also be mentioned here. Okay, progressive overload and fit. Reason they're in the same box is progressive overload is achieved by using fit. Fit isn't really a principle training on its own, it's how you achieve progressive overload. So they've put in my training session, see appendix 4, referencing the training session. I've gradually increased the weight intensity which I lift in my weight training program in each exercise each week. This means that I will make gradual strength gains. So progressive overload is gradually increasing the difficulty. They've achieved this by lifting slightly heavier weight each week, which comes under intensity within fit. So they've outlined that they're gradually increasing the difficulty. In addition, they've said how they're doing it with intensity. They could have changed the amount of repetitions. If they're doing cardiovascular fitness, they could have changed how long they're running for, which would be time. Or if they were doing weight training, they could vary the type of exercises they're doing, which would come under type. So overtraining reversibility. This section comes into progressive overload quite a lot, because if you are gradually increasing difficulty and allowing enough rest and recovery between training sessions, you shouldn't overtrain, because you're allowing your muscles time to recover and you're not overdoing it within your training sessions, which could lead to injury. However, if you are doing sessions back to back on concurrent days, doing overly heavy stuff, you could overtrain, which could result in injury. If you become injured, you're not going to be able to train and you're going to lose the fitness gains you've already made. So in my training schedule, appendix 5, which is the training schedule, they've referenced it clearly. Again, if you don't reference it, the examiner won't look. I've ensured that I've allowed enough recovery between training sessions from building in free rest days between sessions. So they're saying how they've built in rest, how they're going to avoid overtraining, and reversibility. Okay, so this is the frequently asked questions. So question 1, can I use more than one skill to develop? Basically, within your PEP, the whole idea is that from your pre-performance data, you identify a single skill that you want to develop. You then use fitness test results to identify the component fitness that is going to most improve that skill. And then that's what you do. If you're doing multiple skills, what you're doing is diluting the quality of what you're writing. The whole idea is you go into a lot of depth, a lot of data, a lot of graphs on that one skill with that one component fitness and see how that impacts your performance. If you're using multiple skills, you're probably only going to be able to access the lower marks because you haven't gone into enough detail. Okay, yes, you can. However, the requirements is 1 and you have 15, so 1500 word limit is going to be very, very difficult to outline multiple skills in the depth you need to. So can I work on more than one component of fitness? So again, yes you can, but it will be more difficult to get the level of depth required for a level 5 answer. So certain components of fitness, such as power, it is good to use perhaps speed and muscular strength because they're both used together to generate power. But majority of the time, examples like cardiovascular fitness, you would just focus on cardiovascular fitness. There's no need to bring other components in. That would mean you're actually having to review more material with the 1500 word limit, this would reduce your chances of getting a higher grade. Okay, so next one, can I use more than one method of training? Very similar to the others, yes you can, but again this is going to mean you're diluting down what you're able to say, because you're having to review multiple methods of training. This is going to take word count away from other areas of the PEP that could have accessed you the higher marks. So the recommendation is you use one. Do I have to stick to the 500 to 600 words for the introduction? With the introduction, you're basically introducing the evaluation. If you use too many words in your introduction, it means you're reducing your evaluation, which is where you get the main body of the marks. The introduction is vitally important, but it's very, very important you're concise in it, to allow you as much room to evaluate later on. Okay, I hope you found this video useful.